Thanks, guys. Good to see a lot of you. I have 2 mics, which makes me sound a little weird, sorry. Do you guys want to fix this? Is it going to sound like this the whole time? I'm okay. Anyway, we've got 3 red wines today. A bunch of you I saw earlier today, and this is far more comfortable than the melting that we were doing outside. So it's exciting. We've got 2 Italian reds and 1 Australian Shiraz. And what I want to do is kind of walk through these wines with you. Let me give you a little back. How many of you guys know who I am? Raise your hand. Okay, so for the other half, let me just give you a little backdrop. I was born in Belarus in the former Soviet Union. My family came here in 1978, and my dad got a job at a liquor store and as a stock boy, and grew up to manager and saved up money and bought a small store in Springfield, New Jersey. And that was called Shoppers Discount Liquors. And I was very entrepreneurial, lemonade stand, you know, ripping the flowers out of people's lawns and selling it back to them, which is still my best business. You never sat on inventory that long. You know, you walked up, ripped it out, and sold it back. And had a great baseball card business. And when I was 14, making hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars a weekend selling baseball cards, and life was phenomenal. And then my parents dragged me into the liquor store when I was 15, being first generation immigrant, oldest boy, and that sucked because Dad paid me $2 an hour bagging ice, and that was devastating. But eventually I realized people collected wine, and that kind of tied in my 2 passions at the time. So I got involved in the family business, and in 1997 I launched WineLibrary.com. I changed the name from Shoppers Discount Liquors to Wine Library, and from 97 to 2005 I grew the family business from a couple $1 million a year to a $45 million a year business. And then I kind of freaked out because I want to buy the New York Jets, and it kind of hit me when I was 30 that I wasn't going to be able to do that just doing wine retail. So I decided to build my own personal brand, and thus I launched Wine Library TV in 2006, and I've almost basically been doing an episode every day since. And that led to a lot of opportunity, and that led to me leveraging a lot of internet platforms, which led to speaking at business conferences and things of that nature. And that's my spiel. I like business, I like wine, I love the Jets, and I really, really love my family. So let's get into the first wine. A bunch of you heard before, probably the biggest pet peeve I have is that people don't smell wine enough. I think it's missing out on a major opportunity to really learn about wine, like it. It's a huge factor in priming the palate for the flavors, and it just smells good. So I want you guys to give this first wine a sniffy sniff. So let's smell it up. Now I want you to not swirl it. I see some of you jumping the gun, and that's good because you're doing the right thing. But I think we can learn something pretty crazy here. So if you haven't swirled it, and even if you had, because I guess we've got to let you sniff, let's sniffy sniff this. Now I want you guys to swirl it heavily, like you're angry with it. On the table would be easier because then you won't be scared to spill it on yourself. All right? Now let's sniffy sniff this wine again. Yeah, this is wow. For people that haven't really done it, I don't know how hardcore you swirled it, but it's pretty shocking. How many of you guys felt somewhat to a considerable difference on the nose? Raise your hand. Let's think about that for a second. Almost all of you did. So, you know, it's really neat to me that just something that simplistic completely changes the entire experience. So if you're buying a nice bottle of wine at dinner, or you're just buying wine in general, you're just drinking at home casual $10 wine, it's pretty shocking how much oxygen is your friend. So this leads me to another thing. How many of you guys drink wine somewhat regularly? Raise your hand. Okay. Not everybody raised their hand. How many of you guys, and don't lie to act cool, how many of you decant every wine you drink? Raise your hand. Every white? No, that's a good, thank you. But no, I decant a lot of white bourbons. How many decant every red wine you drink? Raise your hand. Everyone. 80%. 50%. Don't lie. 20%. How many of you never decant red wine? It's fine. It's the far majority. I just want the truth. Raise your hand. So, you can go to like Target or Walmart, and buy even a vase. You don't even need to buy a decanter and spend 100 bones that they try to trick you into. Just get something that looks like it and decant your red wines. You'll be shocked. If you come home, pop that bottle, pour it into the decanter, and then after you do all the other stuff you do, have that for dinner, your wine will be dramatically better. Almost always. The funny part is, most people think decanting is left for the fancy schmancy wines, because you see that at those restaurants or in the movies or wherever, but inexpensive wines often have much more awkward tannins. Not bitter or darker, but awkward, and really tend to blow off from some decanting. And if you have something that is $35 retail a bottle, I would even recommend opening the bottle, not decanting because it might be too much exposure over a 12-hour period, but almost every $30 or $40 bottle of wine that I drink for myself, I will pop before I go to work in the morning, leave it on the counter like this, and then decant it an hour before, because it breaks down the bitterness and the tannins and the sharpness that you guys all dislike. Nobody loves bitter tannins. I mean, people can say they do, but it's usually the black tea and some the dark chocolate flavors. It's not the tannins, they get mixed up. The funny part is this: we probably consume, especially in the US, because it's a newer thing and a lot of people don't have allocation of space. You start going to Europe and wine countries, a lot of them have basements filled with wine, We drink probably our wines, probably 98 to 99% of the wines that are drank in the US are drank way too young. I said a stat earlier in the seminar that 96, 90, it keeps fluctuating, but it's like 95 to 98% of all the wines that are bought in the US are drank within 48 hours. And that's devastating for the winemakers, because wine is meant to be consumed on average 3 to 4 to 5 years after it was bottled. And thus, everybody blames Robert Parker and the Wine Spectator for the Parkerization of wines, and they're all big and bold and fruity. It's not Parker's fault. It's the fault of the way we consume the product. If you guys drank the wines that were made in the 70s and 60s and even into the 80s, today, if they were making that style of wine right away, 80% of the wines that do well would be out of business because you wouldn't like the way it tasted. So, the only way to really combat that is through breathing, opening. Decanting is huge. I highly recommend it.